Hello and welcome to Console Training's video, 30 minutes to show. In our first section we built a show, we put some presets in, and in this part we're going to take some of those presets and we're going to start putting together something you could use for a cover band or just a really simple busking programmer layout that uses playback. Let's jump straight back into it. So I've already got some positions in. We're going to do some colors. So while we're programming colors, I like to do a couple of things. I like to have sort of one fader page for presentation stuff and then another one for just bands. And this is where it gets a little more confusing. We're actually going to probably, yeah, that's how we'll do it. We're going to grab our washers and we're going to create, and this is really simplified. You know, you can break it down a bit more than this. Just wash intense, and then we'll go profiles. Let's break it up actually. We'll go profiles, and then we'll repeat the same process for the performances, and depending on the amount of faders you've got, you can obviously break it up a bit more. But essentially I like to break it up, so I've got all my intensities like this on 3 faders. I'll also modify my cues, which is once again an MA thing, so that I've always got the capacity to select them, called self-fix, which is once again a nasty thing because it's selecting in the programmer. But it's handy if you just need to grab fixtures. Some people do it with intensity on a button and then they use group masters. I've got myself tangled doing that. So now I've got my 3 ones. I've also forgotten to set my lovely flash, so I can flash them. And then once you've done that, I'm only going to use one fixture type from now on to do the rest. I'll normally do a position stack, and it depends on the show. Normally I wouldn't track audience positions in. You sort of just want to have something you can stab to make changes if you need to. So it's nice to be able to bash a bunch of buttons at the end of a song or something to signify a change, so everything snaps. Obviously, going to the roof is not the greatest, but normally for me these position presets, position sequences include, you know, downstage left, downstage right, if it's crossed, uncrossed, X positions, you know, just sort of different variations. And I'll also label them so I know exactly what I'm doing. And once again, an MA thing, I'll change the off to a load. So now I can go load, I can select position if there's more than one, and we can go and do it like that. So once you've got a position one, you can then do a color one, and this is how I normally do my colors. If I've got lots of faders, I'll do 3. So V perf hot. Really simple stuff. Once again, I'll set it as a load. And then I'll label all my cues. Red, orange, yellow. It's a terrible yellow. It's a burnt yellow. Oops. Magenta. And pink. And then we repeat the same thing for cold colors. Can this be done in 30 minutes? You bet this can be done in 30 minutes. You just need to pretty much head down, but it is all very possible to do in 30 minutes. So check you've got those, and then to get you out of trouble, it's always nice to have what I would call safe looks. So select them, and you just do your really stereotypical like half colors. Your red and your oranges. Some people don't use green. Some people are weird. Green is bad for skin color, obviously. But it's just, you know, nice, quite conventional looks that'll get you out of trouble. And I always put fades on half colors. And you always, once again, always label everything. So it's yellow, red. Green, blue. And if you're doing a lot of ones where it's like, you know, yellow something, yellow green, yellow this, I always try to mix them up. So when I change, you know, half the lights are never always the same color. So, you know, if we look at this, they all change color. You want, you know, you want something slightly different. So you can go through, you can do that. Then, you know, drop in some hots. You don't have to use faders. You can obviously use buttons for it. But the reason I use faders is just so I've got more than one. Yes, you could space them out as two and have a load button as well. But then it's consuming two buttons. So you can go, you know, perf hot. And then, oh, you know, I want to actually go with pink next. Goes to pink instead. You can do it like that. Before I move on to effects, the other cool thing you can do, while I just put this back, you could also set these as different things. I mean, you don't have to use, you don't have to use a go. You could use a crossfade if you really wanted to. Can you? You know, you could also use a flash go. So temp them. Ooh, where did I stick that? I wonder. So you can also drop in color. And the other thing you can do is if you want something that you can tap and change colors, instead of having it load always from the first one, you can have it restart from next queue. So if you're halfway through a queue list, like, you know, magenta pink, oh, that's a bad example because it's going to come back on the first, you know, your orange, and next time you bring it in, it's going to start on the next color, and the next color, and the next color. It all depends on how you want to do it. It just means that every time you bring in the hot, you're not always bringing in your first color, which is red. But now you can also temp through and get different cues as well. Before I move on to effects, the other really cool trick that I love doing is doing, once again, selecting my things, putting the rig in red, and before I store it, going into delay options, finding the right parameter, and typing 0, do it manually, 0 through 4, storing that, then grabbing another color, let's go, you know, green, and coming back to the same area and going 4 through 0. And you can see here what I've done, all the values are different for every fixture, so that when we store it now, and you can do this with MA1, you can do this with a lot of fixtures, a lot of consoles. When I run this, instead of it just, you know, bash through colors, what this will do is it'll do it a fixture at a time. And if you shuffle your selection order or something, you can do really cool things. So if I now go grab our performances, put them in blue, and before I do anything else, I go, it's tools menu, isn't it? I go into the very disused tools menu, shuffle selection order, and then we go back to color, delay, and we go 0 through 5. And we store that to our same fader. This time, instead of doing really nice, you know, ordered things, or, you know, ooh, one of those fixes is in the wrong spot, I've just noticed. I didn't build the show file. It'll do just like random stuff and fill it in one by one, and it depends on the speed. Obviously, there's another thing you can do. You can assign a rate fader to it. As we go special master, we go rate, and we can make it instant. So you could do this to all your normal punch through ones, like your hot and your cold, and then you can just modify your rates, you know, if you want. And it works a bit better if you're using a fade rather than a delay, but you can punch through, you know, all sorts of cool effects, and it's really dynamic and awesome. Going backwards, so doing 0 through 4 and then 4 through 0 looks really nice as well, and if you are using a load command, it works exactly the same. So if we were to go load, you know, Q3, when I hit go, it's going to follow that speed as well. And it's great with big rigs. You can do it with positions as well. It looks really cool with positions. So if we're going to delete these for the moment just so I don't get confused. I'll leave the rate one there. But if we go, select our performances again, take them to the roof, store that as a position, and then store, audience center. Before we store that, we of course actually need to put in our values. So we're going to go delay 0 through, let's go 0 through 4 again. Store it. I'm probably going to have to update one of these queues. So it's going to snap out. And then this time when we do it, it's going to go 1 by 1. Then when we go back to Q1, it's going to do them all manually, which means I have to go in, set the delay as 0 through. Let's set one as fade, one as delay. So let's go 4 through 1 instead. So there's nothing sitting at 0. Then we go update Q1, adding in new contents. Now we've got our delay down. And now they all fade up in different orders. So the fade is obviously a lot more subtle. So if we were to stick this on our rate fader, and bring it to, 0.6, you're actually going to see it a bit better. So they do move in a different order. Some fixtures aren't moving, now they're starting to move. So you can get really nice dynamic effects by doing stuff like this. Then effects are really simple. I'll let that finish. It's quite nice. So effects are really simple. I always have a couple of stomps, but then it's just the normal stuff, I do carry a USB full of effects, but most of the time it's show dependent, but it's all pretty much the same stuff. You've got your dimmer sign, which we've all seen. And I normally use template effects. Selective effects are good for special things like your walk-in and stuff, but most of the time I use template effects. So I'll normally have a couple of the same effects. So, dimmer sign, and then a winged dimmer sign. And then, a blocked one. It all depends on the show. And it depends how creative you want to be. And then normally I'll just store that to a fader. So I've got, dimmer sign, store, dimmer sign again. And normally I'll have 3 faders. So I'll have 1 dimmer effects, 1 position, and then 1 color effect. Yes, it does fill up faders, but it comes down to what desk you're on. Obviously you can use on-screen faders, but then you just have nothing in your programmer, and you can easily bring in, a dimmer sign, and you can change your fader to, speed. So you can make it slow, and then, speed it up. Or you can use, once again, on your effect, you could use just an overall global speedmaster. But that's pretty much the way that I set up my show. So it's a really old trick of hot colds and lots of faders. Anyway, hopefully this was helpful to some people. We are getting back into the swing of recording videos. It's obviously just busy season for everyone. But we wanted to get this out while everyone's especially busy, because I know that there are a lot of people out there doing shows that would love, to, improve their programming a bit. Hopefully this helps. Some of the things that I've shown today can't be translated across, but most of the things can be translated onto a hog console really easily. And messaged me. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching.